Mr. and Mrs. Jackson with their 4-year-old daughter Florence traveled from their home in Chelsea, Oklahoma to visit relatives in Oak Grove, Arkansas in September of 1937. On Monday afternoon of September 6th, the whole family and Florence's grandfather went to a wooded section outside the city to enjoy some nature time. Florence and Grandpa took a walk to an abandoned sawmill. Around halfway to the mill, Florence said she was tired and wanted to go back to the car where her parents were, so she turned around and ran towards the vehicle. She never made it back to the car. When Grandpa returned back and didn't see any sign of Florence, they called the authorities. There were 400 searchers at the scene, and they searched the area for 4 days, and they did find some evidence. Shoes and stockings of the girl was found on Tuesday, one day after she went missing. They were half a mile from where she was last seen. The way the sheriff described the findings was as if someone was carrying her and stripping her clothes one by one. It's worth mentioning that there was a heavy rain couple days after Florence went missing, which slowed the effort. On September 10th, 4 days after Florence's disappearance, a farmer's wife was outside of her residence 7 miles from where Florence disappeared and thought she heard someone is crying. The wife walked around the residence and down near Indian Creek where she saw the little naked Florence asking for help. All of her clothing was gone. Her hair was full of burrs and she was carrying 1 tomato and a handful of sheep sorrel. The little girl said she didn't think she could cross the creek and asked the woman for assistance. The woman went to the other side and grabbed her and took her home. Florence said she'd eaten wild grapes, tomatoes and lots of sheep sorrel. The girl was taken to her parents and later on to the hospital. There were scratches all over her body, but she was fine. Once the girl was in hospital, the police started to question her to find out if there was an abduction in play. Florence stated one night she slept on a log. She continued, when darkness came again, she climbed a tree. Another night, she stated she slept on a flat rock, got cold and asked for her mother to come. It was unclear whether she was calling for her real mother or someone else in the area to come to her. She also said when she was hiding in the woods, she saw 2 strange men. She didn't say who these men were and what was strange about them. She continued she spent one of the nights in a house deep in the forest. She said after a black man and woman picked her up, they took her to the house and put her on a cot for the night. In the morning, they gave her breakfast and told her to get going. The little girl was mad and hit them with her hands. It's worth mentioning the authorities never found the house Florence was speaking of, and to this day it remains a mystery who helped Florence to survive 4 days in the wilderness. In late October of 1989, the Madsen family and friends were in the Little Deschutes River Canyon in Deschutes National Forest of Oregon, United States. They were doing an annual herding of family cattle prior to winter. At around 2 p.m. of October 22nd, the whole team was on horseback herding range cattle when the 9-year-old Nathan rode up to his father and said he was cold and would head back to camp. There was a dirt road back to the camp which was hard to miss. Once the father reached the camp after cattle herding, his wife told him Nathan had not returned back. They all got worried and headed back to the canyon and searched throughout the night, but they found nothing. As they were searching for Nathan, they called the authorities as well, and a formal search was mobilized the same day. The search was massive. There were Air Force reserves, the US Smoke Jumpers, USFS, Civil Air Patrol, Oregon National Guard, tracking dogs, and volunteers at the scene. The search covered over 60 square miles, which is a huge area. On October 26th, 4 days after Nathan missing, the sheriff stated it seems like he disappeared off the face of the earth. After 10 days of searching, which consisted of more than 350 people, the sheriff called off the search and stated, "We ran out of places to search." Even after the massive search, Nathan's father kept looking for his son. He rode every morning to look for sign of Nathan or his pony that he was riding at the time he went missing. On November 19th, about 1 month after the incident, the father found Nathan's pony. It had lost weight and did not have its sack, saddle or blanket. 4 days after the pony was found, someone donated 4 hours of flight time in a helicopter to fly over the area where pony was found, but at the end they didn't find anything. The county district sheriff later stated they were entertaining the idea of abduction. He also stated imagining a criminal waited on the side in the middle of wilderness until the boy was separated from the group and abduct him seems a bit far-fetched. He continued this was the strangest case he's ever been involved in. Another thing the US Forest Service did was to pull all the people who got permits for the wilderness during the time when Nathan went missing and interviewed every single one of them for any eyewitnesses of what happened to Nathan, but nothing was found at the end. The Madsen family continued to look for the boy, and after 10 months they found the remaining of a human being, which later was confirmed by police that it belonged to the 9-year-old Nathan. They also found the saddle and clothing of Nathan at the scene. The location he was found was half a mile from where his pony was found and 3 miles from where he was last seen. The area was searched extensively before. After examining of the remainings and clothes, they concluded there were no sign of violence, which puzzled the authorities. The area where Nathan was found was in the opposite direction of where he was heading. What happened to Nathan in wilderness of Oregon remains a mystery to this day. The 2-year-old Larry Krebs and his father were on the 3rd day of a camping trip in the Lake Texoma, Oklahoma in March 30th, 1988. The two were walking close to a river that feeds the lake, gathering woods. They were 50 feet away from the water while the father was walking in front and Larry was walking behind him by 8 paces. As they were walking, the father turned back to check on his son, but he couldn't see him. He was gone. The father later stated he never heard of a splash or any noise coming from his son. The investigators found a pair of a small child's footprint that led to a small puddle but didn't come out. The area that Larry went missing is extremely isolated and wooded. There was a massive search conducted in the area, but they didn't find anything. Some believed he might have drowned in the water, but nobody was ever surfaced. The idea that someone waited in the bushes in oblivion until Larry was around 8 paces behind his dad to take him seems far-fetched. Larry was never found. I'd like to know what you think happened to the boy. Feel free to comment down below your ideas. Thanks for watching and see you on the next episode.